guys, it's Bryony. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing my 16/17 week bump date. So I've written down some of the main things I could think of, so I hope you don't forget anything, but I'm sure I will, because every time I film one of these videos, particularly the last one, I was like, oh, I forgot to mention this and this, but we'll do my best. So jumping straight in, one of the worst symptoms that I still have is bloating. It's not as bad as it was. Everything seems to be getting, bar like mood stuff, which I'll talk about, everything else seems to be getting a bit better. So bloating wise, I've had that throughout a lot of my pregnancy, and I think last time it was still one of my main symptoms, and it is still something I think I would say is my main symptom, but it's not so extreme that it's like really uncomfortable and I can't do anything. It's just I notice that I am quite bloated by the end of the day compared to the morning when like you really can't tell I'm pregnant. But like by the end of the day, I look a good few weeks bigger. The other thing I forgot to mention last time, which I've had again throughout a lot of my pregnancy, is this sort of funny taste in my mouth. This is quite common in pregnancy. Some people describe it as like a metallic taste. I wouldn't say that personally, it's just a funny taste to me. It's never been that strong, and it's not that strong. It's just occasionally I'll notice that I have this like taste in my mouth, and I'll just have like a mint or something, or eat something else to take the taste away. So it's not like super unpleasant, it's not like the worst symptom by any means, but it's just something that I've noticed that I have. Food aversion wise, that does seem to have pretty much stopped now, which is really great, because that was super not fun. I would say my nausea actually wore off sooner than my food aversion. So my morning sickness, nausea stuff started wearing off around the 10-week mark. It didn't stop at 10 weeks, but that's where I'd say it started to decrease over the weeks, and I didn't need to be taking like anti-nausea meds like as much in the day. And then so about by 12 weeks, 13 weeks, I think it was kind of like most days I felt pretty fine, and sometimes I get it in the afternoon. I did still get an episode of nausea over these last 2 weeks, I think around 16 weeks. So I went on holiday to France 2 weeks ago, around when I was 16 weeks pregnant. And whilst when we were going on holiday, I found like the car journey to be something that made me quite nauseous. And I think what I figured out is that it was because I was trying to fall asleep. If I'm like not tired and I'm in the car, I seem to be fine. But if I'm feeling a bit sleepy and I try to nap, that seems to set off my nausea now, which it never has done before. I've never had car sickness like that before. So I think that is a pregnancy thing. But that seems to be the only time now that I get particularly nauseous. So I did have to take some medication for that, but otherwise have felt fine. So day to day not dealing with nausea anymore, hooray. But food aversions, they definitely lasted much longer. The way I describe it is like I'd feel hungry, but anytime I thought of food, it was like, oh no, nothing was like particularly appealing, which was really difficult for me because it's so like I didn't want to cook anything. I literally had to rely on my parents to like cook something and put it in front of me. Generally speaking, vegetables and potato dishes were kind of like fine. I went really off meat at the beginning. But now that seems to have completely gone. Very rarely will they say something to me that makes me feel like, oh, I really don't want that. The only thing, interestingly, is some of the foods that I ate quite a bit during my first trimester. Now, when I think of them, they make me feel a bit funny, and that's probably because I was having them during a time where I was feeling really sick. But other than that, all the regular foods that I would eat, mostly my appetite seems to have come back for them, so that's really good. That was something I really struggled with actually. I thought the nausea was like the worst bit of it, and it certainly was, but not fancying any food made life really quite difficult too. So something else that I've been getting, I think is called lightning crotch. I don't know if this is exactly what people describe when they talk about this, but it's the only thing I can think of that comes close to it. So basically, sometimes, very occasionally, this has just started, I'll be like lying down or sitting down, and I'll get like a dull but very quick throb kind of pain to my pelvic bone. And I think it's not sharp for me like some people would say, oh, like really like that. It's like, oh, it's a bit uncomfortable. So I think that is what they call lightning crotch, because that's just started. That may well get worse as I get more pregnant. Something else I've noticed is that I am far less like burpy than I used to be. So prior to pregnancy, I was not someone that used to burp a lot. Like you know when some people eat or drink, they burp quite often, particularly after food, and I always find it really annoying personally. But I've never been one of those people. Like I don't understand people that can just like burp on demand. I'm like, That's so weird. But pregnancy did make me particularly burpy. So anytime I ate or I drank something, like I always felt like I needed to burp afterwards. And that was from, I think, quite early on in my pregnancy until about a couple of weeks ago. And I did realise when I was thinking of the things for this video that actually that has definitely decreased over the last 2 weeks. I've definitely felt less of a need to burp. Don't know if that has anything to do with like the sickness and the food aversions wearing off, etc. But yeah, the only thing that does still seem to trigger it is apple juice. So one of the other things I did talk about in my last bump date was like fatigue, and particularly having low energy with not being able to walk very far. Still have this. I don't know what my blood pressure is at the moment. I haven't seen a doctor in the last 2 weeks. I am seeing my midwife next week, so I'm sure I'll get an update from her then. But I was really struggling with low blood pressure, particularly like standing up, I'd get very dizzy. I had postular hypertension before I was pregnant, so I guess it's not surprising this has got worse in pregnancy. But I find standing for any period of time or walking anywhere really to be really quite tricky, and it wears me out very quickly. So when I'm sitting down or I'm at home and I'm just like chilling around the house, you know, working my laptop on the bed or working downstairs, etc., I feel absolutely fine. But if I go out anywhere, like, and I need to walk any distance, that will just, I'm there like so out of breath from doing what feels like nothing. So that is very, very frustrating because it has completely cut off a lot of my coping mechanisms, which were to, if I was feeling a bit low, I'd get out of the house and go for a walk, etc. Can't do that anymore. So I have still got that, and I was hoping it was going to get better, but I had another fainting episode while we were on holiday in France, which really made me realise that I actually am not better, and I've just got to accept it now that I might be this way throughout my pregnancy, and I'm just gonna have to find a way to deal with that. But on that note, I mentioned in my last video that one of the things we had decided to do as a family, well, I say we, my mum decided to do, and I sort of stubbornly finally agreed to, was to get a wheelchair. And thank God we did. We would never have got away to France if we hadn't had it. So walking is still really difficult for me. It's not, this is the thing that's so frustrating. It's not painful. I'm not in pain at all. I'm just absolutely shattered doing it, and it feels very much like when I was back with Lyme disease quite badly affecting me. So that's really annoying. So those are my main symptoms that I've been having for the last 2 weeks. So now I'll kind of recap what's happened over those 2 weeks too, sort of day by day. So to begin with, I went on holiday to France with some of my extended family when I was 16 weeks pregnant. And in all honesty, this turned out to be a little bit of a disaster. So first of all, I mentioned in my last video that we had decided as a family, I say we, my mum had decided and forced me into it, but with good reason, that we needed to take a wheelchair because there was no way I was going to be able to walk through an airport and manage, you know, the trip, etc. without one. And she was absolutely right. There was no way I would have been able to do this. So thank God we did. But to kind of elaborate on that, we were originally flying out on Thursday. It was the 8th of September, and I know that because that's the day the Queen died. And we were sitting in the airport while they were talking about her having medical supervision, etc. We didn't know she was dead until actually much later that day. But the flight ended up getting cancelled. So we were checked in, bags had gone off, we got through to the departure lounge, we were waiting there, the flight was delayed, and then about an hour into the delay, they cancelled it. And it took us another hour and a half, I think, to get our bags back and get out, and it was utterly draining because there was lots of standing around, etc. I could not stand. I was in the wheelchair, and one of the family would be pushing me around. Thank God we had that chair because there's no way I'd have coped without it. So that wasn't a great start. There were no extra flights that day or the next day, so we could only go out on Saturday, and we were due to fly back on the Thursday, but we did decide, because we were able to transfer the flights, didn't cost any extra money, we decided it would still be worth going out. So we did book those flights for the Saturday. So on the Saturday, the flight got delayed again, but did go out, so that was good. So we got out on our holiday. However, because we'd missed the initial flight, the hire car company cancelled the hire car, even though we'd already paid for it. It's a bit bizarre, but they cancelled it, and we ended up arriving very late at night anyway, so we had to get a taxi to the place we were staying, which was fine, but what we hadn't realised was when my parents had booked this particular villa that we were staying in, we thought it was closer to the centre of town than it was. So we'd got there by taxi, obviously, because we couldn't get the hire car at that time, and then realised we couldn't actually really go anywhere from there without a car. And of course, there's me not able to really walk particularly well. We did manage to get down to the beach, but there weren't any, it was like a beach where it was just a beach. There wasn't any, you know, restaurants or anything along the front or etc. So it was, you know, literally a case of you take a towel and all your stuff and you can go to the beach, which was fine. So that first full day that we were there, we didn't have a car, and it ended up being the only day that we really had nice weather out there. But fortunately there was a pool and everything, so we were able to relax in the house, and that was quite good. But the rest of the time we were there, it was pretty grey. The Airbnb hosts were amazing, and they were going on holiday, so they lent us their car whilst they were away, so we did get a car and were able to move about a bit. But there was one day, I think it was Sunday or Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember, but my family, we all decided we would go to the market, and I thought, you know what, I'm in France, I'm in a fresh place, maybe I'm going to feel better. We took the wheelchair with us in the car and we drove down to the marketplace, and I said I'll leave it in the car and I'll just walk around because it's only a very small marketplace. And I don't think I could have walked much further than 200 yards, if that. I don't even know what 200 yards is really, but not a particularly long way, like round the market, down a little alley, and out the side where there was the sea, river. It's like a river going out to the sea, etc. It's irrelevant. But by that point, I was like, okay, I need to sit down. Sat down, realised I was completely out of breath. My heart was pounding, and I felt like I was going to faint again. So I had to end up, luckily it was a bench, I ended up lying down on the bench. And I realised I wasn't going to be able to do any more than that, so I had to send someone back to the car to get the wheelchair, and I was just so frustrated because I'd only had that particular episode once before when I was about 11 weeks pregnant, and this is where it happened again, where I felt like I was literally going to pass out. And it's really not a nice feeling when you feel that ill, so that was really upsetting to me because I just felt so ill. I was like, I just want to go home. So it was frustrating to kind of once again be reminded that even though we're on holiday, I can't escape the fact that my body is struggling with all these changes it's going through. But the good side of that is that after that happened, I then said, well, I'm just going to not be stubborn anymore. I'm just going to, if we go and do anything, I'm just going to, you know, drive there in the car and sit in the wheelchair straight away. And when I did that, I was able to do a lot more things, because sitting down I feel fine. It is just the standing up that my body can't seem to handle at the moment. So we did end up going back to the seaside, and we had like a crepe and ice creams a few times, and I just made sure to sit in the wheelchair. So I really had to just get it into my head that Bryony, you've just got to sit in this for now. And the only other problem with that holiday was that the beds ended up being really quite hard, and the pillows weren't particularly comfortable, and I stupidly had forgotten to take one of my pillows, and being pregnant, like trying to, even though I'm not showing very much, like I do need to be on my side, and so it wasn't the most comfortable. So anyway, aside from the one day of really nice weather and that it was lovely to spend time with my family and to have some proper French food, which is much better cooked than ours, it was a little bit of a disaster as a holiday would go, but it wasn't the worst it could have been. But still, it just wasn't as enjoyable to me, I think, as I was hoping it was going to be, because obviously I didn't miraculously get better going away like I thought I might. So anyway, we obviously had a holiday out there, made the best of it that we could, and we came back. And aside from like the walking issues that I had on holiday, the rest of it, like, I'd felt pretty good. Like, I wasn't having as many low points. Something I did do before we went out there is I had bought a notebook specifically to write down any thoughts and feelings I was having about pregnancy, or any time I thought of something that I was thinking might be affecting like my mood and my emotions. I put it in this book because, as I mentioned last time, the hardest thing about pregnancy for me by far has been my mental health. So as I said in the last bump date, I am going to do a video specifically on this because there's so much that has happened that it'd be impossible to fit it all in these videos, and also I really need to probably do trigger warnings and stuff before talking about it in any depth. But I have really struggled with my mental health throughout pregnancy quite severely, and it was worst when I was around 10 weeks. But I had thought it was getting better and that I was having these odd moments of feeling a bit low, but particularly while we were on holiday, that only happened really like once. And the rest of the time I felt pretty good, and so I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm kind of coming out the other end of this. But then this past week, so it's Friday now as I film this and probably upload this video, but on Monday I had a little bit of a low day, and I was like, oh, this is frustrating because I've been feeling so much better and feeling so much more positive about things recently. So that was a bit annoying, but it wasn't particularly bad. But then Tuesday I had probably one of the lowest days of my entire pregnancy. It was really horrible, really quite scary as well. So that was not fun, and that made me feel really bad too, because it was like, I thought I was past this, and clearly I'm not. However, because I have been having mental health problems for the whole time, and my area seems to be really, really good, and my hospital in particular really good at catching women with perinatal mental health problems. So I have already been under a pregnancy mental health like CBT group. So I was due to have my next session on Wednesday. However, because I ended up sleeping quite bad the night before, my session is from 11 till 12:30 and it's virtual online. I ended up oversleeping until 12, which I can't remember the last time I slept till 12 at any point, but obviously I woke up and I was devastated because I was thinking I really needed that session today. But I did log on for the last half an hour. And then I was able to grab the therapist at the end. She said if anyone wants to stay on and chat, we could, and so I stayed on and had a bit of a talk with her. And I also have been having one-to-one therapy sessions with that same therapist too. So I had that yesterday, which was Thursday. So I did get access to the therapy I needed, and that really did help actually for me to process some of what I've been feeling, but it was really frustrating to feel like I was back there. And then I'd say most of this week I felt a little bit better yesterday, and then today again I felt a bit again. So it is just up and down, and as is the way I think with lots of mental health stuff. And I think I have accepted at this point that I am going to need support throughout my whole pregnancy. This isn't something that's just going to stop at some point. I'm going to need to have support the whole way, but I am very lucky that I have got that, and that I live in a country where all of this is free to access. So that's kind of a summary of the last 2 weeks. Very quickly I wanted to add in some other things that have happened. So I had my first pregnancy massage yesterday. My mum treated me to it because obviously I've had a bit of a rough time this week and the last couple of, well, throughout my whole pregnancy really, but particularly this week. And so she treated me to that, and that was really nice to have like a relaxing time. She did like a head massage for me too and a face massage, and I really love head massages. So that was a positive thing that happened. And the other thing is, because as I said before, I'm struggling with walking, I can't really do any extra work. Like I can't do a lot of fostering things at the moment because I'm just far too ill, and I can only really do work that's from home. But my business and my YouTube stuff, it takes up some of my time, but it doesn't take up all of it. So quite a lot of the time I'm really bored and I feel like I'm losing my mind. So I was looking at things I could do that would maybe be work from home, like some volunteering stuff, and I have found a charity that I really like, which is local, which has like some remote volunteering opportunities to support them. And so I sent an email off to them to offer help, and they've already responded back to me saying they'd love that help too. So I'm feeling quite positive about that. So that's something else I've done to try and give myself positive things to focus on, and also to fill my time a bit more. But you know, certainly being stuck at home a lot has been quite difficult for me through pregnancy, so I'm trying to find things to help me with that wherever I can. So I think I've spoken enough. Let's get up and do a bit of a bump shot now. Okay, so I still don't think I'm really showing that much at all. This is me from the front, and then from the side, again, there's a little bit here, but I don't think this is really much more than usual, maybe a little bit. Down here, like, definitely I feel firmer here. This is baby, but this is pretty much still just bloat, I think, so. Yeah, not really showing just yet, but honestly, long may it last, because I quite like being small. So these are just regular sweatpants that I can still fit in for now. So yeah, I think that is everything for my 16 and 17 week update. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Like I've said throughout my videos, my whole point with this, documenting this journey on this channel, is to show that pregnancy isn't always great for everybody, and there's so many different experiences you can have, and I just wanted to kind of show my real and raw side of it. So if you're going through a tough time, you don't feel so alone, maybe, because it is quite normal to struggle with pregnancy, but we don't always see that in social media. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Do please subscribe, and I will see you very soon. Bye everyone.